Okay, we're going to use a simple equation to calculate the volume. And don't let this scare you, because we're having the computer do all of the work. This kind of math where the computer does all the work is actually kind of fun. So I'm going to go to Windows, Node Editor, and it's going to bring up my everything that's related to this ball right now. So we have our ball model, which is what we want, right? We don't want to work on the shape or the sphere or the shader. So I'm going to click these little oblong things here to expand the number of things I can work with here. And what I'm interested in is scale. So over here on the left, we have the inputs, and then over here on the right, we have the output. So this would be scale X input, and this will be scale X output, scale Y input, scale Y output. So I plug things into here, calculations happen, and then the output gets passed. So the UI for this is a more advanced tool, so they kind of expect you to kind of already know what you're doing. Just follow along, and if you get stuck, ask me or post a question in the forum if you haven't finished this in class. So I'm going to press tab to bring up this little menu to type in, and I'm going to type multiply, and there's this multiply divide. I'm going to press the down key on my keyboard, the arrow, and then press enter, and it will make this multiply divide. And I'm going to click down on these little shapes again, little pill shapes. And once again, I've got an input and an output and the XYZ components for all of them. So I'm going to select this multiply divide and double click it to bring up the attribute editor for it. So this row up here, this says input 1, where it's got X, Y, and Z. That corresponds to this right here, input 1, X, Y, and Z. Input 2, X, Y, and Z. So what I want is I want the scale Y, right? I'm going to take the output scale Y, and I'm going to put it into the input 1 Y. And if you look over here on the attribute editor, it gets yellow. That's showing that there's a value plugged in. And if I were to, I'm going to select my ball here, move this over to, let's see, where can I move that easily? Move this down right here. And as I scale that, and then I pull up my multiply divide, that value changes. So now it's at 0.3, I scale it back up. It's at 0.69. I keep scaling it. It's at 0.978. So that's, I'm just showing you that that's updating as we work. Go ahead and set that back to 1. The next thing I need to do is I need to change this from multiply, because like right now what this is going to do, this is going to multiply input 1 by input 2. What I want is I want to do power. So this is going to, now this is set to take y to the power of 1, which is still going to be 1. So I'm going to change this to 0.5, which with the power operator is the square root. So now we're going to get the square root of y as an output here. Now we need to do something with that output. So I'm going to press tab again to get this little command, this little prompt here for input. And I'm going to type multiply again and get another multiply divide. And click down here, get these little things exposed. Open these up so we can see what we're doing. And now I'm going to take the input y and I'm going to put it into the input 2y. And this order matters because we're going to be doing division on this node. So I'm going to go over here to the operation and set it to divide. And I'm going to put in input 1, I'm going to manually enter the number 1. So what this is now doing, when we get down to this stage here, this is 1 divided by the square root of y. All right, so this part, it gets a little bit tricky just because of the way it draws the flow of information in the graph. So I'm going to move this over here. And what we want to do is we want to take the output right here, this output y, we want to plug that into the scale x of our ball model and the scale z of the ball model. Now, when I pull down and scale it down and then scale it up, it squashes and stretches. So this little formula here, the square root of 1 divided by the square root of y, that's a common geometry formula, and if you ever find yourself needing this, you can just look it up. So I'm going to go ahead and label these something besides multiply divide. So I'm going to call this power of y, or sorry, square root of y. And then 1 divided by square root of y. All right, and now the computer will do the math for us, and all we got to worry about is how this looks on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and close this window because I'm done with it. So you'll need to set this up, this little network, on your other objects here, right? So this is kind of like the hypershade. If I've got this window open, I select this object, then I graph up and downstream connections, and I've got some other shapes, other things in here, but I'm only concerned with the pyramid model, right? So make sure that you name your stuff in the outliner before you get to here, because default names can get very confusing inside the node editor. And once again, this window is just right here, Windows, Node Editor. All right, if you get stuck on this, ask for questions. Ask your questions and I will answer them. If I got to make more videos on this subject, I will.